First up, joining me now, great pleasure, dear friend Kellyanne Conway, former counselor to President Trump, host of Here's the Deal with Kellyanne on Fox Nation. And you just interviewed President Trump.
I did. We sat together for almost an hour today, Larry. The very first question I asked President Trump in our face-to-face interview was about Israel, Hamas, and Iran. And we went through, as you just did, very quickly the two administrations and their policies towards Iran. And I think there's a certain melancholy and resolve with President Trump that he does think October 7th wouldn't have happened if he were still president. He does think Ukraine would not have been invaded. And he feels that, my words now, war through weakness versus his peace through strength. But what you say about the energy policy is important, too, that Iran was starving to do deals. The Biden administration has looked the other way. Trump, of course, imposed and enforced those sanctions right away, took us out of that crazy nuclear deal, and now Iran's on the march. He also made a good point in our interview today. President Trump said that that the U.S. got in Israel's way, and they need to finish what they've started here. We also talked about the economy. We talked about school choice. We had a very lengthy conversation about the border, in fact, a couple times. And he said a couple things I thought were new. One is he keeps saying the damage has been done. He's making Kamala Harris eat and own this incumbency. So you see the disapproval ratings on the economy, on the direction of the nation, on the Israel-Hamas war, of course, on border security and migration. And he is putting that at her feet and basically saying the damage is done now. He wants to undo that damage, but he's the change maker. She's the incumbent, regardless of what she says. I also like the way he approached her as his political opponent. He was talking about where he sees her incompetence, her failure to do the job. Around these personal attacks, the failure, really an attack on her incompetence and her inability to actually have produced as vice president.
Failure to do the job. He's down south looking after Hurricane Helene, right? He's trying to bring in private volunteers and all kinds of people. He's also getting briefed by FEMA. Where's Harris? Where's Biden? Why aren't they on site? I mean, they say they're getting briefed. Harris went 20 minutes from the border in Arizona to a Hollywood fundraiser. Why hasn't she gone straight to, let's say, Georgia or North Carolina or some darn thing? I mean, Trump is acting like the president.
Trump is acting like the president. I watched him do this with the Baton Rouge flooding in 2016, right after he became campaign manager. I told him Governor Pence is going to the floods, and Hillary Clinton was at some fundraiser in the swing state Hamptons or Nantucket or Aspen. And I remember candidate Trump said, well, I want to go too. And they went together. And he has done that so many times. You saw this in the White House. Look at what he did at East Palestine, Ohio. He was the first one on the ground in East Palestine long before anybody from this administration, including Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg, whose job it was to be there. He shows compassion. He shows that people want to be heard. They want to be seen. They want to get immediate relief. And for President Trump to show up there in Georgia today was incredibly important. I was with him right before he flew to Georgia. Also, he said something else today. He said after the folks get what they need in this moment, the food, the water, the shelter, the help, they've lost their memories, they've lost their property. And he wants to make sure that they have access to voting. He wants to make sure so close to Election Day that the people of North Carolina, Georgia, Kentucky, Tennessee, Florida, everybody has been affected by this.
He also asked everybody to join him in prayer.
That's
and
right.
I love that.
And
All right, I'm a softie for that. I am.
Absolutely.
Franklin Graham and so forth.
Franklin.
America needs more of that, not less, okay? A certain vice presidential person running for president won't show up here in New York.
She sends her thoughts, never her prayers at this point.
I mean, she won't show up here for the Al Smith dinner, which raises money for Catholic charities. Again, a lot of people think, myself included, that she has an incredibly anti-Catholic, anti-Christian, one might say anti-religious, anti-God-bearing. And if she doesn't, okay, if she doesn't, then the left wing of her party does, and that left wing is the tail that wags the whole dog.
I think it's part of why they're losing Hispanics. It's obviously economic opportunity and prosperity. It's obviously the border. It's obviously all that lost learning and what these parents, Hispanics are the youngest of the four major races in this country, and they have the youngest children, school-age children. So they heard firsthand what was being taught in these schools during the pandemic. But I think the untold story about Hispanics is obviously the positions on life and the position on religion. You have a lot of people out there in the Democratic Party now don't want God mentioned, don't want us to start with a prayer. They're always setting their thoughts, never their prayers. So if a lot of church-going populations in this country feel that you are either hostile to their religious expression, you're going to pay for it. And it's Donald Trump 5 years ago during UNGA, United Nations General Assembly, who led the first of its kind religious freedom, religious liberty special session. And it was amazing. It was all religions across the country represented there.
So I got numbers. Let's see. Hillary won the Hispanic vote by 39 points. Joe Biden won it by 31 points in 2020. Right now, Kamala is winning by only 12.
Yep, according to NBC poll.
Okay,
and in some polls.
One more.
Yep.
I want to go to unions, organized labor. Bill Clinton won organized labor by 30 points. Joe Biden by 19 points. Kamala only 9. Okay, the leadership of some of these unions may say they're for Kamala, but the rank and file is going for Trump.
And that's why the Teamsters could not endorse her. First non-endorsement of a Democrat in decades, in part because when you looked at the polling, they favored Trump. The rank and file favored Trump. He hears this from the auto workers. He hears this from many of them. He says that. I'm going to give you 4 groups, Larry, very quickly. And I said this to President Trump in our hour-long interview today. Hispanic Americans, Black Americans, union rank and file households, young people. Donald Trump does not need to get 50% of any of those groups, let alone all those groups, to be the next president. He just needs to do better than your typical Republican and better than he's done before. And right now, Kamala Harris is underperforming Joe Biden, of all people, among young people. She's underperforming among Hispanics, African Americans, particularly males, and she's underperforming among union households. This is the key, and I think it's a big key to Pennsylvania. He was known as Scranton Joe. He'd been around a long time. He's Catholic, big Catholic population there. She is vehemently against fracking, vehemently against energy production, doesn't spend a lot of time there talking to the labor unions the way he did. And for President Trump to go to Erie County, Pennsylvania yesterday, which went Obama, Obama, Trump, Biden, it's very smart. I think his campaign is incredibly smart and strategic, where they send him and when. He's working his heart out, and he's doing what he did in 2016, which is go where the people are. Sure, it's a national audience, but you're doing that local TV, local print, and local radio interview before, after, and people see that there in that county for the entire week.
Last one, 30 seconds. Just got 30 seconds. J.D. Vance versus Tim Walz.
Can't wait.
What do you think?
Oh, I think Walz
Give us one pearl.
Walz will wipe the floor clean. Vance will wipe the floor clean with Walz. Yale Law School educated attorney versus, honestly, a coach and sometimes a clown. He thinks he's funny by being off the cuff, but all these stories that we're reading that must be coming from the Walz people trying to lower expectations by saying he's really nervous, he doesn't want to disappoint Kamala, he doesn't want her to think that she made the wrong choice in VP. We know she made the wrong choice. It should have been Josh Shapiro. But I think both of them are going to have to defend their principles, P-A-L-S, and principles, L-E-S. There's a huge contrast between the two parties now on taxes, on education, on foreign policy, on the border, on local crime. Walz has been a left-of-center governor. He was the 7th most bipartisan member in the House of Representatives when he represented a rural Minnesotan district. He became governor of Minnesota.
Is Minnesota in play? Somebody told me Minnesota is in play.
If it is, it's because we're learning who Tim Walz is, so J.D. Vance can help with that. I think
Virginia's definitely in play.
Here's what I predict, and I said it to President Trump
New
in our
Jersey's
interview.
in play.
But why not? It's all in play. Larry, last point on this. I said to President Trump today, I know you, and I think after you watch 90 minutes of that vice presidential debate, you're going to say, when's my next time? Come on. I know you said no or maybe not to a debate, but how in the world are you going to let the vice presidential debate be the last word of the presidential debate season and of his career?
Kellyanne Conway, the best bet. Did I promo your Trump thing? Was that a good promo?
You did. You did, absolutely. Everybody check it out on Fox Nation.
Best
An hour
promo
long with
possible.
President Donald J. Trump.
When's it going to play? When's it going to play?
It's going on right now during
now.
your show.
All right, there
Live.
you go. Right to our
Thank
show.
you.
Wait till after the show's over, then go to Kellyanne on Fox Nation.